All right, boys and girls, I thought I'd try something new and put my face in the corner. I have no idea if that'll work or not, but we'll find out shortly. This video is all about comparing red light fractions. We know that they're red because they're definitely not green. They do not have the same denominator. And we cross our fingers if they're not green and hope that they're yellow. And that would save us a lot of time. To be yellow, that would mean the smaller denominator, like the 5, in this case, would be able to be turned into the bigger denominator, which is the 6, making it a yellow light fraction and much easier. Unfortunately, nothing times 5 makes 6. So this is a red light fraction. That means we are, in the end, going to have to change not just one fraction, but we're going to end up having to change both fractions to create green light fractions. As soon as we know that they're red light fractions, just kind of like when a doorbell rings, the dog starts barking, as soon as we know that they are red light fractions, we are going to draw an M. And again, that M stands for the least common multiple, the smallest multiple that our two denominators have in common. So we're going to take our denominators, the 5 and the 6, and I'm going to put them up here at the top of our M. Again, M for multiple. And we want to make sure we're doing it with our denominators because we're going to be creating new denominators. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to list all the multiples of 5. And I usually do, I shouldn't say all the multiples of 5 because multiples can go on forever. I usually do 5, starting with the first one. Counting by 5s you can think of, or 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3 is 15. Or again, I can be counting by 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. That's about as far as I'm going to go for now. I do the first 5 and hope that it's enough. If not, I'll have to go further later. Now I'm going to go ahead and list all the multiples of 6 to start. So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. I haven't found a common one yet. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30. So I've done the first 5 multiples of both, and I haven't hit a common multiple yet. So I'm going to go back to my first side, and I'm going to go a little bit further and see if I can get any further. So this was 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, 5 times 4, 5 times 5. Next would be 5 times 6, which is 30, which I don't know if you saw it like I did, but there it would, right over it, there is a common multiple. And it is not just a common multiple, it is the least common multiple. And that least common multiple is going to become our brand new denominator for both fractions to change into. And what we've just done is we've turned red light fractions into green light fractions. But we're not done yet. We need to go ahead and watudamadud to get from fifths to 30ths. I know 5 times 6 is 30, and I can even count over here. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whatever I do to my denominator, I have to do the same thing to my numerator, and 3 times 6 is 18. So I changed 3/5 into 18/30ths. I'm going to do the same thing over here. My watudamadud is going to be different because this time I'm going from 6/6 to 30ths. And I know 6 times 5 is 30, or I can count over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whatever I do to my denominator, I'm going to do the same thing to my numerator. 5 times 5 is 25. So now I have turned these ugly, dreaded red into beautiful green light fractions. I'm now comparing 18/30ths to 25/30ths. And I know that if I eat 25 out of 30 pieces of cake, I've had more cake than if I only ate 18 out of 30 pieces of cake. So I'm going to go ahead and put the greater than sign toward 5/6. And just a quick check to make sure that I'm correct. I can use the original fractions to do bottoms up. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 3 is only 18. And since 25 is greater than 18, I know that 5/6 is greater than 3/5. So that's an example of a dreaded red from start to finish. I want you to watch one more, and if you feel comfortable after one more, you can go ahead and try the one on the half sheet of paper. There is a third example too, so if you feel like you need a third one, feel free to watch the third one, but I would like you to watch this one. I know that these are definitely not green light. They are dreaded red because nothing times 2 makes 5. So I know that instantaneously I'm going to draw my M. I'm going to take my denominator from this side and put it on that side of the M. I'm going to take my denominator from this side and put it on this side of the m. I know dreaded red, I'm going to end up changing both fractions to make new denominators that are the same as one another. So now I'm going to go ahead and list my first multiples of 2. So I have counting by 2's, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or I can think of that as 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 5. Again, I like to do the first 5 multiples. I'm now going to start listing the multiples of 5, kind of paying attention to see if I have any common multiples in here. So 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, and I could keep going, but I noticed that I have a common multiple here. It wasn't 5, they did not have 5 in common, but they did have 10 in common. And so that 10 is going to become my new common denominator. And it's going to be able to turn these ugly dreaded red into these green light fractions with tenths. So I'm going to go ahead and with Tudamadud, doesn't matter which one I do first. I know 5 times 2 gets me 10. I'm going to do the same thing to my numerator. 2 times 2 is 4. So I have 4 tenths on this side. On my other side, I know that my Watudamadud to go from 2 to 10 would be times 5. Whatever I do to my denominator, I need to do to my numerator as well. 1 times 5 is 5. That makes sense. 1/2 is 5 tenths. And now I have my 2 green light fractions that I can finally compare. I have 5 tenths on that side, and I have 4 tenths on the other side. And if I were going to decide which one is more, it's definitely more to have 5 out of 10 pieces of candy than it is to have 4 out of 10 pieces of candy. So I'm going to go ahead and open my mouth over to the 1/2 side, or where the 5 tenths was. I can do a quick bottoms up to check. When I do bottoms up, please make sure you use the original fractions to bottoms up, not the new fractions. Because we don't want to use, if we made a mistake making our equivalent fractions, we don't want to do bottoms up with our mistake. So 2 times 2 is 4. That's a weird pen there. And 5 times 1 is 5. And I know 5 is greater than 4. So that means that the fraction on the same side, which is 1/2, is greater than 2/5. At this point, if you feel like you can attack a dreaded red with the m and the least common multiple and everything, you can pause the video. Don't stop it, but pause it. And I want you to go ahead and try the half sheet of paper with a dreaded red. If you're still not understanding it, I'd like you to go back to this video and watch the third example. So go ahead and hit pause, and I'll see you in a little bit if you need some more help. All right, let's try this last one that I have as an example. Definitely a dreaded red. Nothing times 3 is going to make 8. So we know that we're going to end up changing not just one, we're going to end up stopping and changing both fractions. And to figure out our new denominator, we are going to do our m. And don't forget, it is not the numerators that we're going to put up here. We're changing our denominators, so we want to do the least common multiple of our denominators. So we're going to put the 8 on that side and the 3 on this side. So we're going to go ahead and do multiples. I chose a kind of a tough one for this one because counting by 8s is really hard. So you can think about multiples as 8 times 1, which is 8. 8 times 2, you need to know your multiplication facts, that's 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 8 times 4, if you don't know it, take 24 and add 8 to it. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. So that gets you 8 times 4. And then 8 times 5, I know my 5s, that's 40. And I'm going to stop at 5 multiples of 8, and if I need to do more, I will. And now I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with my 3s. So 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 2 is 6, 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 times 5 is 15. So I'm going to take a peek and see what I have. They don't share a 3, they don't share a 6, they don't share a 9, they don't share a 12, and they don't share a 15. After 5 on each side, I don't have a match. And if I were to continue to count with my 8s, 40 is way higher than where I am on this side. I'm only at 15 over here, so it'd be hard for me to see if I have a match. I'm actually going to extend my 3 side and see as I get closer to my bigger numbers on the 8 side. So that was 3 times 5. 3 times 6 is 18. I don't see an 18. 3 times 7 is 21. I don't see a 21 on this side. 3 times 8 is 24. And I don't know if you saw this or not, but I'm getting excited. 24 is our least common multiple, or the smallest multiple that these two denominators have in common. So I'm going to use that 24 as my new common denominator for each of my fractions, and that will allow me to turn these dreaded red into green light fractions. So now we got to Watudamadud. I know 8 times, and if I don't know, 1, 2, 3. 8 times 3 got me 24. I'm going to do the same thing to my numerator. 5 times 3 is 15. So 5/8, we can think about it instead as 15/24. And we're going to get this green light fraction with 2/3 into turning that into 24ths. I know 3 times 8 is 24, or I can count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to do the same thing to my numerator, times 8 with my Watudamadud. 2 times 8 is 16. So I've turned these dreaded red into some pretty green light fractions, and green means go. I'm now paying attention to 15/24 versus 16/24. They're not far from one another, but 16 out of 24 is just a little bit more than 15 out of 24. So I'm going to open the mouth over to the 2/3 side. I'm just going to do a quick check with bottoms up. And again, please use the original fractions for bottoms up, not the new ones that we made. 8 times 2 is a good old 16. And 3 times 5 is just a little bit less than that at 15. Since 16 is greater than 15, I know 2/3 is greater than 5/8. So if you struggled on the first one, now you've seen another example, a third example. We're going to go ahead and I want you to check in with Mrs. Phillips. If you've already tried the one on the half sheet, and she'll make you a fresh, clean red light fraction, or if you have Mrs. G, check in with Mrs. G, and they'll make you a new, fresh red light fraction to give a try with. Good luck.